Do you use any tools to manage your productivity?
No, I don't. This is my team's role to improve that. Learn to prioritize, procrastinate on certain stuff. No, me, open source, no, I don't know how to start.
So, hello everybody, and welcome to React Advanced in London. My name is Evangelos, and I'm here with Aleksandra, a full-stack developer working on EdgeDB. So we'll get started. How are you, Aleksandra?
I'm very well. I'm enjoying the conference. I'm enjoying London. The weather is nice. The conference is amazing.
Good. This isn't your first time speaking here. What brings you back?
No, it's not my first time. I've spoken at a few GitNation conferences. I like the way they organize things. They make sure that speakers have a nice time. They also make sure that attendees learn a lot of things. I think they put a lot of effort into picking the topics and making sure that they are relevant.
So you've been into quite some interesting work. So we'll ask some intro questions when we get right into the technical stuff. Could you share a bit about your journey into tech? What was your first memories and how did you get started?
Well, I remember that I learned coding in high school. I mean, I started with PHP.
Oh, wow.
I was trying to get myself more familiar with computer science and how to build websites. Then I forgot about it for a while. And when it was time to pick like what's next after high school, I was debating over a few tech-related studies, and I picked computer science because I thought that it's like broad enough that I can do a lot of different things, and it gives me some time to decide. But I ended up with coding anyway.
As some of you may or may know, she's a full-stack developer. Was that always in the plans, or was you looking at other types of development to get interested in?
Well, to be honest, I remember that in the very beginning, I was interested in machine learning, and I thought that I was gonna end up in medicine-related fields doing some machine learning coding. I kind of started as a backend developer, and then I transitioned to full stack because both parts were equally interesting.
Yeah. That's awesome. And for anybody getting started into computer science and the world of tech, do you have any tips for them to help them ease their first steps into the industry?
Well, my one tip is to be very, very patient, because I remember the first few years even, there were things that didn't make any sense. And it took me a while to kind of like piece those puzzles together for some bigger concepts to make sense. And in the beginning, I knew some JavaScript and I knew some HTML, but I was like, how to make a website? Like, what happens? How you get it up there? And then you like learn this like smaller blocks, and one point it turns out that you can do a lot of things. So patience is very important.
Patience is very, very important. So you've graduated from university. What were your first experiences in your first role like?
I actually started working as a backend developer at my second year of university. I remember I was working with Python and Elixir, and that was a bit overwhelming, but I learned a lot. I was working with databases a lot as well back then, and I didn't work full-time, but it was like almost full-time. And combining this with studying, it was very, very tough.
You can imagine.
But I do not regret it. I think I learned a lot, and it helped both, like my daily work helped my university, and then like what I was studying at university also was helping.
Are there any key tips or mistakes that you've learned in the past that have helped shape the person that you are now?
Like one mistake I did, I was trying to do too much. Like initially when I didn't want to choose between front-end and back-end, I was trying to learn both. And that was like, again, very overwhelming. And I think I would maybe, if I had the chance, I would do this differently now, but I do not regret where I ended up. So
That's fair.
It still led me somewhere.
So as we know, you're deeply involved in open source projects. What fueled that passion, and how do you keep on top of all of the ongoing aspects of that?
Well, that's also something that started at university. I remember I had this one class. It was called like Basics of Computer Science. It was like about Git, about Linux, like 1 hour per week. Not very complex exercises that we had to do. But one thing was that like the lecturer told us that we should be involved in open source. I remember when I was I was finishing this class and I spoken to him about my grade, he was like, you should contribute to open source. So, and then, back then I was like, no, me, open source, no, I don't know how to start. I don't know what to do. I'm not that good of a programmer to get involved in open source. But then when I started like writing my thesis. It was a full stack application for like university management. I published 2 smaller open source libraries. So that was my first like approach to open source. And then I got involved into some other projects just by, helping. At first, I was just reading the code. I was curious. Then I was solving smaller issues. And then I got involved with Hasura first. I mean, it's a company, a VC-founded company, but they have an open source part. That was cool. And then with Blitz.js, that was a fully open source framework.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there's some great talks here, but what I'm really looking forward to, and I've been to a couple of these GitNation shows, panel talks, when you're with a whole bunch of other people, you're getting these great conversations going on. That's really fun.
So anybody out there, how would you describe what open source is and how can it get started?
Open source is something that actually fuels what we are doing and like how we are doing things in the ecosystem. How you get started? Well, you might be already working on something like on a project at your job or maybe a side project and you're using certain tools. So maybe you see that a tool that you are using is missing something, there's a bug or there's something that you would like to improve in the documentation. And that's, I think, the easiest way to start because you already know the tool, at least a little bit, and you can contribute right away, probably. This is also like one of my first contributions were about, adding like a super, super small things, like 1 line of code in a tool that I was using at my job or somewhere else to have a nicer experience at my own job.
So it's sort of like giving back to the community.
Yeah,
awesome. Awesome. Diving deep into EdgeDB, you're a software developer, as we know. What's been some interesting lessons or experiences that you've had working there?
Well, so at EdgeDB, I do more of a developer relation stuff. A few things that we've learned as a company is what people are building. And for example, one trend that we see is that a lot of people are building AI stuff. And they would like their databases to like have certain AI functionalities. So that's something that we were working on this year to incorporate, to not only have like vector extension in the in our Postgres layer, but also to have certain functions that make developing AI projects easier.
And in particular, you're in charge of improving the developer experience.
Yes.
What is that and how do you improve that? How do you measure that?
It's about, incorporating users' feedback. So basically, if people are saying things that, I don't really know how to use this function, I think that function should have a different API, or, complaining about the documentation not being clear, this is my team's role to improve that, which can mean that maybe the documentation is not valid, we should improve that. But in many cases, that means that the API is not optimal as it could be. It means that we should have other changes in the code as well. Yeah, basically this is about streamlining the developer experience so that people don't get stuck at how do I even use this project, the product or function or another feature.
So it's all about making the developer experience much more easier for whoever's using the tool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So in your words, how would you describe what EdgeDB is and why would I use that over another database tool?
EdgeDB is a Postgres layer that lets you use all the functionalities of Postgres, because we all know that Postgres is like one of the most important databases. It's huge, it's performant, it's amazing. And EdgeDB builds on top of that, adding things, as I mentioned, the AI stuff, authentication built in, and it's kind of like a batteries included layer on top of that also streamlines the developer experience, giving you full type safety. That way you don't have to use multiple solutions like, another database, for example, serverless database, and an ORM on top of it to have type safety, and maybe another auth solution. You have everything in one.
Awesome. So it's like an all-in-one tool that satisfies all you need.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. So hopping back to Blitz.js, you're a massive contributor to that. Could you explain to us what Blitz.js is and the benefits it has?
Yeah, so Blitz.js was kind of like a first RPC-based framework. We are all kind of familiar with React Server components now. And this is kind of like what Blitz tried to do. Basically, the biggest concept was that you were able to import backend code, your server code, to your front-end components and execute it from there. And then the Blitz magic, it was a compiler and we were using Webpack. It made sure that all these functions, the server functions, only run on the server and there's nothing leaked to the front end, to the browser. So that was a massive deal because it also made so many things easier because you didn't need to have like a separate server and separate client. Like it was a nice full stack solution. It also grew to be more than that. We had like authenticated layers, built-in authentication authorization as well, code mods, CodeGen to generate like pages and to scaffold some parts of your application. It was this solution that you could install Blitz, set up a new project with Blitz, and you are done with so much setup that you would spend hours on doing manually.
Awesome. So you're working on EdgeDB, you're also working on Blitz.js. How do you keep on top of all of this as well as learning?
So I don't work on Blitz.js anymore. I think I worked on it for almost 2 years, maybe 1 year and a half. And I think I left the Blitz.js core team in the beginning of 2023.
So what are some key takeaways that you got from learning and working with Blitz.js?
Well, firstly, I learned a lot about open source and how open source works. Good stuff and the bad stuff. So firstly, there's always something to do. There are always new issues and you can be overwhelmed. You can be like, oh, maybe one more. And you can really burn yourself out. So one key lesson is to, learn to prioritize well, because there's no way you can do everything. And there will always be people, complaining that, why not this issue? Why you're working on that issue? You have to learn to read users' feedback and prioritize based on that, but also to kind of like detach yourself from feeling like guilty about not working about certain parts, and to be sure about your decisions, because, there will always be decisions that are great for one group of people and not really for the others. So you need to have a vision, take people's feedback into account, but be then firm in that vision.
And burnout is a really common topic within the development community. Have you ever faced burnout? And if you have, what did you do to try and combat that?
Well, I think I did. I think I had maybe 2 smaller ones. It was definitely because I was trying to do too much work at the same time, and I was focusing like all my energy on like programming, on tech-related stuff, and not really focusing on other hobbies. And like what helped me was to actually, take some time off and do other things. And then also like once I'm back, make sure that I do not work from like the moment I wake up till I go to sleep.
So how do you get the right balance between work and leisure, in your opinion?
I think that like the one benefit of going to the office, and I love remote work and I wanted to stay that way, to still be able to work remotely. But one benefit of going to the office is that, you have this certain split between, your job and leisure. Not really the case when you work from home. And I face that. Sometimes days were like, I would procrastinate on certain stuff and then I would start work later and then it would like, stretch over the whole day. I think if someone has problem with that, then it's good to schedule time in your calendar that's only for work, and then you close your laptop and you really stick to it. And without any excuses like, oh, I still have my whole day, maybe I will do something else and then I will work, or maybe I'll work now and postpone all my like hobby activities to later. Like you just if you struggle with that, you have to stick to your schedule.
So definitely time blocking would be a good tactic. Okay. So now we have a few more general questions for all the new developers that might be looking for your advice. So what is documentation and why is it important?
Well, documentation is where you find out how to use the product. and also why to use the product, how to integrate it with other tools, and why it's important. It's because, there's always a certain barrier to get into a tool or a project or library. And if your documentation is not friendly enough and it's not easy to comprehend, then you might, scare a lot of people who would be taking advantage of your project, and then you're just, scaring them away and they are moving to something else. It's very important because, when you are learning something new, I think, and you're already overwhelmed with all the different programming stuff, like programming language, 5 other libraries that you're using in your project, and then you're getting in the new one and you don't know really how to use it, then it builds up the frustration, and you don't want to have your developers frustrated when you're building a dev tooling project.
Of course. We want to talk about, do you use any tools to manage your productivity within the workday? And if you do, what are the names of them?
Well, I used to use a lot of them. Now I don't. So I think I went through many different things, like the time blocking in my calendar, but like very detailed time blocking. Like, I have half an hour for this, half an hour for that, and then I move to something else. I have a focus block and so on. That works sometimes, but sometimes, your day shifts, or maybe there's a more urgent task that you have to take care of, and, you can't really stick to your plan. And sometimes the task takes you longer than expected, and then, your whole calendar is messed up. You may still do this, but it requires, to have this like flexibility in your mind always, and to expect that things won't be perfect and according to your calendar. And then I was using like tool that you could install on your Mac, and it would track how much time you spent on certain tools. So for example, it would track how much time you spent in VS Code. And then when you go to your browser, it would prompt you like, hey, you are using your browser you were supposed to code. So I tried that, but I found it annoying after a bit. Or I remember when I used to work at Blitz, and I had like so many different things I had to manage, like coding, Discord, GitHub, and Twitter, or like there were like 10 different things. And I had this little thing that I would turn around, and on each side I would have like, what is my current focus? I had stickers, like, a sticker for Twitter, a sticker for GitHub. And then it would give me a summary of how much time I spent on what. But then, it was a fun toy for the first few days, and then, it was just a toy, and I forgot about it. So now, I just try to have up-to-date list of what's important, do the most important tasks first, then do all the other things, and just that works the best. Like, I think the simplest, the better.
Simple does the best job. Awesome. So a really underrated skill amongst developers is communication. How important would you say that is within your role on a day-to-day basis?
Oh, I think in my current role, the dev role, it's like the most crucial. It's not only about talking to people, but it's also about, your like writing skills when it comes to documentation. It's also important when you do support, you reply in GitHub issues, or you do some kind of support on Discord. We have a Discord server. That's very important because you need to be able to help people without sounding arrogant, or without sounding overwhelmed. You need to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, like the beginner's shoes. Forget that you know all this stuff, but you need to explain from the perspective of someone who's new. And also, like in the programming, like strictly like software developer role, it's also important because we are still talking to each other. We are trying to convince each other to why you should accept my PR, and or why we should use this tool over another one. Then you should be able to, explain the pros and cons in a way that other people understand.
Do you have some tips that the viewers could take to improve their communication skills? Well,
I think that just to practice and communicate, and be very patient with that. I think it might be also a good idea to sometimes use ChatGPT to be like, hey, I have this message, how does it sound? If you are not sure, maybe you are afraid that you sound condescending or arrogant, then you can ask, because we are also coming from different cultures. From some people, like a more direct language is okay, but for other people it might be like a bit offensive. So you can use that to ask, or if you have that possibility, you can even ask your colleagues, like, hey, do you think that my tone or the way I'm talking is like offensive in a way, or do you think I'm being too nice and I talk too much? So, you know, just gathering feedback and still trying to communicate, improving, and thinking like actively what you are saying.
So constantly seeking feedback is the key. Awesome. On the topic of AI, are you for it? Are you against it? Do you use it a lot in your day-to-day workflow?
Yeah, I use a lot AI, and well, to be honest, I love it because it helps me with a bunch of different things. Like obviously, I use ChatGPT to ask about, you know, explanations of things, or sometimes even for like writing, like what's another way of saying this?
Yeah.
And I use GitHub Copilot a lot. I'm a huge fan. And well, of course, sometimes it won't give me the code I want, but if I have to write more boilerplate, then it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's very important to still read the code and make sure that there are no bugs. And also, if you're writing like business logic or things that are more about security, then you know, you might want to write it by hand.
Yeah.
But still, I think for a lot of things, Copilot actually like helps you write code faster.
Awesome. Now for some summary questions. You're in London, the React course, Advanced conference so far. How have you found it so far?
Well, I really like it, and I like the venue. I think the location is nice. I think the speakers that are invited here, they are all doing an amazing job, and the talks that they've prepared are great. I would recommend this conference.
Is there a specific talk that you've enjoyed today so far?
Well, it's hard to pick one. I think one talk that I was looking forward was Dominic's talk about a lesson learned from React Query, and in terms of like the RSC. So that's one that was cool in my opinion. But well, I'm also looking forward to some of the discussion panels to learn more about, you know, how people think about certain stuff.
Awesome. And you have your talk in the afternoon, of course.
Yes, I think in 2 hours.
In 2 hours. Can you tell us what that's going to be about, what you're going to be discussing?
Yeah, so I'm going to be talking about databases in the React ecosystem, about trends and how some of the modern databases are changing the way we are thinking about data. I'm going to mention EdgeDB, but it's not going to be solely about EdgeDB. I will be talking more about how to, like what things you can consider when choosing a database for your next project.
And the final question is, what is your favorite part about London?
Oh, it's hard to say. Well, like today, my favorite part is that it's not raining and it's a bit warmer than in my city where where I live. So that was a nice surprise. I've been to London a few times. I like the museums. I think Tate Modern is my favorite one.
Yeah.
So I would say that's my favorite part.
Awesome, perfect. Thank you, guys. I've been interviewing Alexandra, and this is React Advanced.